All right, welcome to Halitics on Thursday, and I'm having a great week, Carlos. So much fun to have you on. We had Catholic Jack earlier this week, and Maury Johnson, the hero from the Holler in West Virginia, as well. And I'm sure Maury is not a happy camper right now. None of us really are about this dirty debt deal. Did I miss something? Dirty debt ceiling deal, Carlos. I was joking with you. I said, "How do you? I mean, where do you we go with this?"
It's we're in a horrible place right now. We are literally we're in a place where honestly the debt ceiling shouldn't even be an issue. We honestly shouldn't even be talking about it. It should be just like, all right, cool. The debt is raised just like it always should be, and we're going on our day. But no, now we're here. We're here with a problem that shouldn't be a problem.
Are you of the mind, and we'll play this video a little later, maybe very much later in the program. Oh, by the way, I should introduce Carlos, but I want to ask this question, then I'll introduce you more fully. Are you of the mindset, as our friend AOC in New York is, that this is the Republican deal, that we should just put it all on them, and the Democrats are just poor victims of their hostage taking?
The way I look at it is this is a problem of both parties. It is a problem of the I also want to say just politics and mainstream media as well too. I mean, you have one party who is saying we're going to hold the economy hostage to get what they want, and then you have another party who is making concessions towards them when no concessions are needed. I mean, and we'll talk about this later. You have the options of the 14th Amendment. You have the options of minting the coin. Like you have multiple things that we're kind of creating a false narrative here. But also the problem is, as we go on, this is going to be something that could be used in the future. So every time we need to raise the debt ceiling, are we going to have fake outrage go on to do this?
Well, I mean, you don't have to let yourself be taken hostage, right? I mean, I even talked about this yesterday. Go ahead, collapse the economy. People are going to blame you, not us. A. B. Fine, we'll just stop paying some of those treasury bills that are held by mostly the billionaire class anyway, and maybe we won't pay all those bills we owe for the materiel we're sending to Ukraine, where we shouldn't be anyway. So there were, even in worst case, they could have just said, we're not going to pay this. I think this is the bill, honestly, this is the bill that Joe Biden wanted. And this is the bill that the corporate Democratic establishment, which controls the party, I don't think there's anything in there they're not happy about.
I'm right there with you. I mean, I mean, you saw how the vote went for it. It went bipartisan vote. This was everyone. This seemed like something that for some reason was wanted. And my thing is this: I get tired of hearing politicians in politics say, "Well, everyone can't get what they want, so it's a good bill because both parties are upset with it." But it's like both parties got bad things. It's bad for the people 100%. For the corporatized parties, it's great for them because they get what they want. And it's even one crazy thing that as I was listening to a news talk about what's in it, is having student loan debt, the pause stop in August, like just hard stop, even though we were promised that if we don't get the $10,000, we're not going to have to start again until we at least get that $10,000. So now we're being lied to.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because there was a lot of talk. Well, there was compromise, and they left the money in for some of the SNAP assistance, but they raised the work requirements. This is going to be very hard for seniors, for old, and for people who are not at retirement age. It's going to be very, very challenging. People who are at retirement age who can't retire because they don't have enough money to do so, which is, I think, about half of all Americans are right now facing a retirement where they will not be able to afford a comfortable life. And then the student loan. So the talk was, well, they left the student loan forgiveness in. It's true, up to $20K. For many debtors, student debtors, that's 10% or less of what they owe. First of all. Second of all, as you said, there's no more delays of the imposition of the demands by lenders for the interest. And that's going to start in 60 days. So that's actually a win for the student loan for-profit industry, the usurers, the loan sharks, and obviously a loss for the American students who owe debts, or who will owe debts in the future. Carl, it's just outrageous.
No, you're
Carl,
100% right. Yeah, it's even crazy when you think about it. As excuse me, what we might see is the Supreme Court strike down the student loan um, forgiveness too. So it's like, hey, we don't get the forgiveness, plus we got to pay it back, and now we're just in the same position. And what some people are even talking about, I was listening to Rising a while ago, and they were talking about how, well, what's going to happen to people's interest, because now it looks like they're trying to set back, say, oh, you have to pay the interest back from last September to now as well. So it just seems like more and more and more. And from what I hear, the people aren't getting anything at all. And what you said about SNAP benefits is it costs more money to have people check people's work requirements for SNAP. So even the whole thing of we're doing this to save money, we're putting in a work requirement costs money, because then we need people to actually go and check these people, check people's working history.
yeah, all that's correct, Carlos. Also, another place we're costing money is in terms of collections, because now they're reducing the number of IRS agents who are going to be out there auditing the billionaire class that, pays, of course, a lower percentage of their income in taxes already under the law, which, they basically wrote. It's so wrong. And ultimately, we have to start talking about what we can do, because I do not believe, and you and I have had this discussion before, I don't know if we ever came to a conclusion, but the Democratic Party, I just don't see as a vessel to make things better. And let me get this whole, I don't get because you you were talking about whether it's the Republicans or the Democrats, or I was talking about both are. If you look at the actual vote, I hope people can read this. There, we'll get it all on. 149 Republicans and 165 Democrats backed the measure. So more Democrats supported this. And at the same time, the bill was actually looking like it was going to go down. And then, as you can see what the New York Times wrote, almost heroically, at least from Hakeem Jeffries' position, they swooped in to supply their votes for a deal that, again, is going to make it rougher for SNAP recipients, is going to put student loan borrowers right in the crosshairs, that is going to greenlight this horrible pipeline, and really no recourse for stopping it now. It took everything out. So Thank you, Democrats.
Yeah, it's where it's as if they're looking at the actual just day-to-day working class people who are either going to go through this and looking at it, well, seeming bipartisan is better than actually helping people and standing on your actual principles and values and standing on what's right. Again, this is a manufactured problem. This was not, throughout the whole negotiation, you had the Democratic Party who was saying, like, we are not negotiating, like this is not a negotiable thing. And then you had the Republican Party who was saying there needs to be negotiations because we're not going to vote X, Y, and Z. And it's like, it should have been fine. Let's play this out. Let's play it out. We're going to invoke the 14th Amendment. And what got me is that I heard recently that what Biden has said now is that he's looking at the 14th Amendment on the next time around. It's like, well, how are we looking at, wait, so you're going to look at it next time, but not now when it actually matters, when we need it most.
Carlos, they could have actually, and they should have, and any reasonable person would have anticipated this 2 years ago and simply passed a bill when the Democrats had the majority in both houses to lift the debt
It's just
ceiling.
like abortion. It's just like abortion. We see it happening, and then we're just gonna sit at. It's like sitting in the middle of a train track, seeing the like train come, and then it's like I'm gonna wait until it's like 2 feet from me to say, "Wow, I should get out the car."
Right. Or it's like Lucy holding the football. Oh, I won't pull it away. Away. Go ahead. And then, of course, they pull it away yet again. So, by the way,
and say, wasn't that a bipartisan event, though?
I think the Republicans actually, when Trump was president, did pass bills lifting the debt ceiling in anticipation that this would come down the road, and they didn't want to have to fight that fight with a potential Democratic majority. So they just said, okay, we'll do it now. We don't have to worry about it, because there's no there's no principles at stake. It's not like they really care about the debt. They do care about making the donor class happy, the billionaire class happy, which, by the way, often includes them. I mean, they're cutting their own taxes. They're cutting our throats and their taxes is what's happening here.
That's what gets me. It gets me that we have so many. It's as activists, we always talk about how like it's the millionaires and billionaires who are like pushing and lobbying to get things that better them. The crazy thing is, a lot of the legislators are also the millionaires who are sitting there too, and like, oh, I'm really to a point. Some of these lobbyists are doing their jobs by like pushing these like horrible things, but at the same point, a lot of the Congress people are either invested in the horrible companies or they are millionaires themselves, and they're like, why would I not benefit myself if I can? It's how we had all this hoopla about Trump's tax cuts to the millionaires and billionaires. But what we didn't see as a way to save money, as is such a huge problem now, is all right, cool. Let's take all that tax money back that we gave the millionaires and billionaires through Trump and cut down the budget that way. Instead, we look at how can we squeeze working class people as much as possible to get every little half a penny out as we can.
It's so upsetting. I mean, there's just no way, Carlos, to look at this and not just be sickened by what we're facing. I want to introduce you. Carlos Childs is a community activist from Southern Maryland. He lives in Charles County, which is a county of which I have in the past demonstrated some ignorance, and I'm a little bit embarrassed about it. But Carlos has set me straight about kind of a bedroom county. Is that fair to say for Washington, D.C.? A lot of government workers living out there, and unfortunately not as much infrastructure as the county needs. But like governments everywhere, although it's pretty much Democratic, right? Is that fair?
It's full of Democratic control. All of our commissioners are Democrats. All of our delegates, state senators, we're fully run, which is a kind of a switch from how we used to be. So,
but they're not doing what is best for the people of Charles. The Democratic local electeds, in your view, are not taking the steps necessary to make life better and it's an affluent county, but there's still poverty, just like there's lots of times more poverty in rich places, like in Washington, D.C. You walk around, it's San Francisco, there's homeless people on every block. It's so sad, it's heartbreaking. And I don't know, do people just not give a crap? I mean, I don't even understand this anymore.
I think
where we are as a society.
I think as a society, we're in multiple places. I think you have like the 1% of people who's like, I don't really care. It doesn't affect me. I think the majority of people care and don't like it. They just do not know how to actually go about fixing it. And I think this is the problem that a lot of elected officials have created. Not just them, but the media, the mainstream media too, has created almost like an atmosphere of, we're never going to really tell you how to actually push for things that you want. It's like you could go to electeds and say, hey, we want this to help the community X, Y, and Z. A lot of times you just get ignored or say, okay, we care. Thanks for bringing it to us. That's it. And then the media will kind of gaslight you by making it seem like you wanting more is a bad thing. Like, especially around election time, it's always like, you want more? That doesn't help the people who are running. So go away now. Or they just come on to kind of like throw water on the fire, even back to the BLM protest. At first, it was great. This is awesome. And then when it actually came time to like, hey, so what about actually getting some things out of this? It's kind of like, well, the protests, they're not our favorite thing anymore. So it's kind of like, I think a lot of people are disengaged and disheartened, and they feel like, all right, no one's here to save us, not even the government that we are in control of. So fine, we're just going to let it go horribly. And I just try to figure out my own life personally.
All right, let's go through some of the specifics here. Carlos Childs with us, community activist, and he has a long history in a relatively short time. As you can tell, he's a young man fighting for poor, struggling, working people. Period. I mean, that's what how we got to know each other. So I'm delighted to have you on. I love doing these shows with friends and people that I share political sensibilities with. And one of the issues Carlos and I have is, I try to argue with everyone. It's hard for me sometimes to find places where I can disagree. We could argue about the carbon tax, but let's not do that today. All right, so a bunch of things, Carlos. I do want to say about the corporate media. Yes, they are always gaslighting. For example, when there are for example, when there are negotiations between labor and management, it's always the union demands, right? The employees demand. What they're demanding is a decent life for themselves, and that a little bit of these excess profits that we see many corporations enjoy. Some are not, some are struggling, and that's a problem too. That our government isn't addressing. Small businesses that are really facing a lot of challenges are often completely ignored. It's the big bugs. It's the Apples, the Facebooks, the companies that really don't need, the Amazons that don't need our help, that should be doing just the opposite of getting our help, but paying a lot more of their fair share, that are actually getting the exemptions and the dispensations and the favor treatment.
You're incredibly right. It's crazy how when we had a bunch of people pushing for unionization, better wages, benefits, all that, we had the media hyper-focused on the billionaire race to outer space. Yeah. That seemed to be the biggest issue, or even the rail worker strike, when the biggest focus on, well, how's this going to impact the economy? Not the workers, not the people who actually do the jobs, or saying, well, they already got higher wages, so that's enough for them. And it's like, at one point, I remember back to like my parents' kind of time is, the media actually used to be like, they actually go out and talk to the people, and it was more people-based, not more sponsorships and corporate-based, and just propping up the already elite to have them come on the like show and things like that. It's crazy.
Actually, you're right. That was probably in your parents' time, I think, back in the even 60s and 70s. You got to go back to. And I actually had this argument with a reporter for the New York Times. And I said, even as late as 1970, a lot of reporters did not have college degrees, and now they all go to journalism school, and it's a class. There's a real class divide between journalists and working class Americans. And this journalist got very angry at me and said, that's not true. And I work with people at the Times, reporters who don't have degrees. And I didn't go to any elite college. They said, well, where'd you go? And so they said, University of Virginia. I was like, no, that's elite. I'm sorry. That's really hard to get into. That's the flagship school of your state. It's one of the top public universities. No, that's elite. And then they brought up a fellow reporter and claimed that they didn't go to college. And I knew that reporter, but I wasn't quick on the uptake. I wish I had been. But that reporter did go to Oberlin, which is, again, that's not... Wow. If they said, well, I went to, Harford County Community College, right? I went to Towson State. I would say, okay, those are more for folks who maybe don't have a lot of money or struggling to pay bills, living at home. I don't see that with, even if you are working class, you go to University of Virginia, you're tagged for bigger things, for better.
And then who you make friends with, who your professors are, who you network with is going to change your opinion and what you do. That's why what you're doing here with Halitics and what other people are doing, getting away from the mainstream and more independent media, is actually giving regular everyday working class people a voice, and not the same kind of exhausted talking points that we see on mainstream media.
I try to give everyone a voice, Carlos, but I'm sure I have my biases too, and I'm not from.
At least you admit it, though.
I try.
Better than like.
It's true. I do admit it. I do admit it. I do admit it. It's true. But look at you. People might say, oh, he's young, he's African American, but you're super articulate, you're super informed. I mean, a lot of folks out there who deserve a decent, you come from a stable, I don't want to get too specific, but you're good. But you're not from a tough, hard scrabble existence.
I'm from a nice middle class suburb. Yeah,
exactly. And those folks, in the ones that we really need to, there are people who live in these railroad shacks in East Palestine, Ohio, who are now their environment has been destroyed.
Yeah.
And their voice is not being heard, Carlos.
No,
It's awful.
at this point, I feel bad for each and every one of them because it's like it's hard to even imagine help coming because it sounds like everyone it's well the mainstream news is kind of wrapped up with that. They say, okay, cool, if this is over, that was nice. I feel bad for him. That's it. And it's like there's so many things, whether it's giving the people Medicare, healthcare coverage, whether it's just requiring the railroad company to buy everyone's property and find them another place somewhere else.
And not have to fight to get them to pay bills. Just you send it and it's paid for. But everything is always, you got to document this and prove that. And some of the, the cost of food is for many people now. And I was reading about this, stubbornly expensive just to eat. I mean, this is America today. And Joe Biden and the Democrats, they don't give a fat rat's ass any more than the Republicans do. And I did want to put this up real quick, and then I am going to force us to go through this because we could talk all day and we got to do this. So from The Nation, a principled Democratic Party serious about basic matters shouldn't be negotiating away things such as student relief, egalitarian environmental tax policies. We went into the specifics. Obviously, the answer is they're not principled. I mean, it's just that simple. And for those who say, well, and I've had this argument with people, well, it's not all Democrats, they're not all the same. It's a big tent. We've got the really good progressives like the AOCs and the Jamie Raskins, and then you've got people like the Steny Hoyers and the Hakeem Jeffries. Here's my answer. Every Democrat voted for Hakeem Jeffries to be the minority leader. Hakeem Jeffries promised Joe Biden that he was going to get this deal through. Hakeem Jeffries delivered for Joe Biden. He delivered more Democrats than we just saw that, and with a minority of Democrats. So if you want to say, well, it's not the fault of Rashida Tlaib and it's not the fault of Jim McGovern, who I sort of kind of like sometimes in Massachusetts. Wait a second. They all voted for this guy. Not one of them took a stand. They all voted for before him for Nancy, right? Mm-hmm. So that's your party. They're lockstep. They deliver for Joe Biden. They delivered for Nancy Pelosi. They deliver for Joe Manchin. This is a giveaway for Joe Manchin. They are not standing for the American people. I'm going to just one more thing because I get go on my rants.
No, definitely. I love it.
I was in Pittsburgh. I was knocking doors for Carlos is the most cynical guy. He doesn't trust any politician. He can't stand any of them. I tried to say, I was like, hey, Senator Nina's on our side. I don't like her.
No, don't hurt her. She would have been a really good congressman.
She would have been better. Right? Yeah. So, and I was in Pittsburgh and I was knocking doors for Summer Lee. And then I saw her after she won. It was great. And she was targeted by AIPAC. Okay. She was, remember all that happened where AIPAC went after her? Oh, yeah. And they lied about her. And they found some guy to run who had the same name as the guy that she beat in the Democratic primary. They found some Republican who had the exact same name as the Democrat she beat to try to confuse people because AIPAC just wanted to defeat her. And she still won. And then she turns around and votes for Hakeem Jeffries, who, by the way, his two top, and I talk about this all the time because it's so, I think it's, his two top donors, I think we've talked about this, Carlos, Wall Street, AIPAC.
I mean, that's the same guy who said that Israel is what, the 6th or 7th borough of New York? Is that what he did? I mean, it's insane. I mean, look. At the end of the day, and I don't like saying this, but I guess if you think voting for whatever speaker you think because you don't have the votes against it, sure, whatever. We saw during McCarthy's part that, hey, a small group of people can hold out and get a lot. So it's a lot of things that people can actually, like elected officials have the power to do. It's just, do they have the will to do them? And this is where I'll put some of the pressure on organizations who kind of endorse and come out and support a lot of these people running, or once they get in office, is I think it's on the organizations to say, hey, we have the power. We're going to say, hey, you got to go up and do this. I don't elect you just so it's your personal mission to feel better about yourself. I'm electing you because you promised this to us.
100%, 100% on that. But DSA did try a little bit to hold AOC accountable, and they got a lot of blowback from some of their members. And I had people come to me and say, we don't like this, and they're being mean to poor Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I so don't understand that. I just don't.
The parties are having. I think at first the parties used to walk down one road. I mean, obviously we're on two different sides, but it's one same kind of road as far as how they operate towards the base, towards their voters and supporters. But it's been a shift where you have the right who kind of needs and feels the need to always, what is it? Kind of, I don't want to say pacify.
Well, they hold their people, they hold them accountable. Yeah. They have purity tests. And I don't think there's
answer to their base.
And I do have a purity test too, Carlos. I really do. My purity test is, are you doing good or are you doing harm? I mean, in the end, are you trying to make life a little bit fairer so everyone has enough and no one has too much? That's my new mantra. Everyone should have enough and nobody should have too much. Because I'm not like a leveler. I don't think we all have the same. I don't know, how would we all have the same? Some, everyone's different. We can't all be the same. Right? I mean, I'll never be able to dunk a basketball. I wish I could. I can't. People who have different skill sets. But the thing we can guarantee is we all have health care. We all get a good education. We all have enough to eat. We all have shelter. And nobody has like 5 cars and 3 houses. That's what we can do.
Basic standard of living. Like that's all people want. And the thing is that
and a job. I think people deserve jobs. Now, not everyone can be a rocket scientist, but everyone can do something that's meaningful to them and that they get some reward for. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, exactly.
And to what you were saying earlier is like just it seems like just the public isn't being listened to. I think that's the problem, is that the right listens to their base and feels the need to like say, oh, hey, look at what we're doing for you. Where as the left, we're kind of seen as like, we don't like our base. Like our base, you're a problem. We just need to keep you in line. We're run top down, where it seems like the other party is fictitiously run bottom up when it's really not. But the same thing is the people at the bottom are just doing culture war stuff, it seems like, and people at the top are kind of keeping their elite economic policy the same, whereas
also playing the race card, playing a lot of playing groups against each other, and I think one thing you said that kind of, and one thing Carlos and I think we always are good about talking about race issues. I remember talking to this Obama activist, African American man, and he was talking about exactly what you did, and he said, remember, so in 2008 we all go to sleep in November and Obama wins, and we're like, okay, black guy in the White House, we can all go home. And he's like, no, that's not right. Yeah. Just because somebody might look like us or come from our background or have family from the same country that our family's from, or has a last name like ours, or worships in the same church or synagogue, that don't mean crap. It's what they do in office.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, it's the same point with Obama. Just because we're both black doesn't mean you support the things I support, because that's the thing. I hope that just mainstream, we get to the point of realizing black people were not a monolith. So it's not like just because you're a black politician, you support everything all black people do, because we all support different stuff. Just like you have the older population of black people who think a lot differently than the younger population. You have the more economic advantage to the working class people. It's all different. And I think what you see in, I don't want to say it's both parties because it doesn't seem like it, but we're, and you know how I feel about it. We are putting race above economic issues that bring all of us together. But at the same time, we do have to realize with the state of things that we have to solve race issues and economic issues almost at the same time, because if we just focus on economic, we're going to see what we've seen for generations, where white people will get their economic freedom and all that, and then black people, we're still fighting for it, and it's looked at by white people as, okay, well, I hope y'all figure it out when you figure it out. We're good though, and that's it.
I think there's truth to that for sure, and this is one area where there was slight different disagreements. I think there's definitely truth to that, but I also think that if you do raise that floor for everyone, for example, if you guarantee everyone health care, if you guarantee everyone a debt-free college education, that will advantage
Oh, definitely.
people who have less. And in America today, that is disproportionately African Americans, Native Americans, or American Indians, as they often prefer to be referred to, Latino, some Latinos. But there's also huge variations. And, look, the percentage of black men who voted for Trump actually was higher in 2020. And I know there's been a lot of people trying to debunk that, but it is true because they perceived, and I'm not going to say they're wrong. I had a black friend in Detroit who told me he was going to vote for Trump. And he said, because he has a better plan for jobs in Detroit. And I was like, okay, I didn't argue with him. I mean, we could argue it, but I wasn't going to. He lives there. I don't. And some of the things that Trump was saying. But the point is that there are issues that cut across race, but there are others that don't. All right, we may get to that later in the program. I just want to show, again, talk about the slide real quick. So this is exactly what we discussed before from The Nation. Why he didn't raise the debt limit in December is a mystery when he still had a Democratic majority. Why they didn't put taxes on the table or refused to. Why they took the constitutional option off the table. That's something you mentioned. All ways that the Democrats, and specifically Biden, gave away the store. Now, the question then is, was this what he wanted? Now, so The Nation is saying, and this is where I totally disagree with this point. I think we see it pretty much the same way. I do think this was the deal that the White House wanted. The White House does want that Mountain Valley pipeline, for example, that they're going to get jammed through now. And it's awful, as even I think it was AOC said, we may get to it. This isn't what the people there want. This isn't what Democratic base wants. This is what Joe Manchin wants and Joe Biden wants. This, again, getting to, so here's what The Nation says, where I just totally disagree with. So they have the first highlighted there. Some people are arguing this was the deal Biden wanted all along. That's what I think. But of course, this White House would want, but then this guy is saying, no, that's not true. Hauser. This White House would want much more in terms of higher taxes on the rich and more funding for the IRS. I almost spit my coffee when I read that.
I feel like, so what I will concede to their point, I guess, is saying the White House wants to say that they want that because it sounds good. It sounds like if I say, oh, yes, we want to fund the IRS more so we can get after millionaires and billionaires taxes. Oh, that sounds good. Are we really going to do it? No, but hey, I'll tell you because it sounds good and I can put it on a bumper sticker somewhere.
Yeah, 100% again, Carlos. And again, I said I spat out my coffee. So I looked the next paragraph in this article. Where the guy, I forget his name now, Terrell or whatever. Maybe it was Terrell. No, Louisa Terrell. I forget his name. Hauser. So Hauser says, I think that Chief of Staff Jeff Zients, I think is how it's pronounced, or Zients, I'm not sure, Louisa Terrell and Steve Ricchetti are bad at their jobs. They lost. They made a gamble, blah, blah, blah. They set expectations so low. So I was like, okay, because these were the chief. So Hauser saying these are the chief negotiators that were working with Biden when he was talking to what's his name? McCarthy, right? Okay, yeah. So Kevin McCarthy. I'm old. I can't remember. You see, the thing I like about doing this on my hair short, you really don't see all the gray, the silver there, Carl. But
you're doing good.
So thank you. Yeah, I know. I'm 60 years old. Can you believe it?
Really?
You could be my grandson. You could be my grandson. I know one of our, Diane, right? From Ohio?
Yeah.
She is a great grandma. She's 64. Wow. She's a great grandma.
Really?
Yes. And she takes care of little Scarlett.
Look at you all not looking your age.
Well, she looks good too. I can't believe it. But she only had like 2 of the babies, right? I mean, she didn't have she had 2 and then they had 2 and then so on and so on. But wow. Yeah, she's a great activist out there in Cleveland.
She's amazing. You should have her on.
I know. I will. I promised her I would have her on. Yeah, Diane
awesome.
Moore. Yeah, she is.
But
great.
not on this too. I don't know if they're bad at their jobs because I feel like they're doing what their job is. Like they're doing their jobs. It's like how when we talk about the criminal justice system or the health insurance system, it's like, oh, they're messed up. No, they're working how they intended it to work. I mean, the health insurance system was not meant for people to get help. It's meant for corporate of a corporate entity to profit off of it. I mean, they're doing their jobs to negotiate with bad faith actors because to a point they're acting like bad faith actors themselves.
Well, I mean, to the point of them not wanting higher taxes, I thought I would just throw this out there. I didn't get any information on Louisa Terrell, but you can see this. In 2001, Jeff Zients had an estimated worth, this is 22 years ago, of $149 million. You think he doesn't want lower taxes? You don't think he's happy that there's fewer IRS agents that are looking up and down his posterior to see if he hit any money up his butt? You think he's out? Steve Ricchetti in 1999 had a $1.1 million salary. Very few Americans have $1.1 million, period.
Yeah.
Including the value of their house.
$1.1 million.
The average American's net worth, Carlos, is somewhere around a little over 100,000, and you see a massive gap between African Americans and whites, with whites close to 200K and African Americans in the $20,000-$30,000 range. This is average or median. This isn't, obviously there are, going to be people who are much higher and lower. So Steve Ricchetti in 1999 made $1.1 million salary. And in 2012, and this is just before, because he goes back and forth between private and government, right? There's that revolving door people talk about. His firm made he made $1.18 million. His firm he made personally. He took out of his lobbying organization $1.8 million. So these are the people that are negotiating for us.
Yeah. And to think, if their salaries and their net worth is this high, what are they invested in? Where's all the other rest of the money going? It's literally, we have legalized corruption in this country. Like we literally have it. So, and it's on so many levels where it's not just the elected official now it's the people just working for the elected officials who do the day-to-day work. I mean, if you're making millions if you're bringing in over $1 million and you have a net worth of hundreds of millions of dollars, you could care less about, first of all, you don't even know about food stamp benefits. To you, that's not even, you're thinking, so are they like literal stamps that you just put in the mail? You don't know what's going on. And when you talk about student loan debt, you don't have student loan debt. Your kids don't have student loan debt. You paid for it out of pocket, so it's not even affecting you. So
you might own stock in a company that makes student loans, right? Honestly, you might own stock in the company that's building those pipelines that's making millions and millions of dollars. But you're not living in the path of it.
No. And even if you did, you have enough money to
move. You move, right? So,
and that's the thing. I'm glad you brought up the pipeline too, because the fact of it is, no one has even said explicitly the point of this. Like who's supposed to be benefiting other than the corporation? And apparently Joe Manchin's benefiting because now
he's worth $30-40 million, Carlos.
Yeah,
he's got
he doesn't need to benefit
rich.
off of this anymore. Like, and you know what's crazy to me too is that all of these people work government jobs getting around less than $150,000 to $200,000 a year. I've never seen anyone make $200,000 a year, but somehow have a $30 million net worth.
Most Americans don't even make $200,000. That's a very, very, very healthy salary. That puts you in the 1% in terms of income, unless you live in New York City or San Francisco, some of the bigger cities. Richer cities than
you look at some of their like states or districts, and it's like you're probably one of those richest people within your district.
Yeah. Oh no, it's just awful. It's just we are not represented, and I just wanted to show that real quick there. We talked about Hakeem Jeffries, but again, praising Biden, and it's a club. It's a club. I don't, a lot of things Jimmy Dore says I don't agree with, but when he says it's a big club, it's actually not. It's a rich club. It's a powerful club. And we're not in it. Let's see. And this is again where the bill almost collapsed, and then Democrats swooped in, even though, and hard right Republicans sought to block it. So I'm jealous. I'm not jealous of the policies, but I wish I had representatives who fought for us the way Republicans do have some representatives, and Carlos Boebert, apparently, she barely won re-election, and that hasn't stopped her one bit. She's not saying, well, I could lose. They barely re-elected me. Maybe I should keep a low profile. She's out there.
Democrat too, not even a primary.
Right. To a Democrat. And she's right there, demanding cuts and demanding that the poor homeless people be thrown out into the streets and fed to the lions, and it doesn't matter.
She's looking at it and saying, all right, cool. I almost lost, so I need to
let's get what I can now.
Yeah, let me get whatever I can now, or make enough name for myself where hopefully I can just get enough of the base to come out next time and say, no, I'm doing this because I like you. And I think that's the problem, is when you have people from the right who barely win or anything. It also depends on your district too. Her district, I think, is more leans more right. So it was surprising that she almost lost to a Democrat. I think her goal maybe now is to invigorate the base so much that they do come out every single time. But you don't see that for the Democrats either. It's just like how you have in New York. Some of them lost safe districts that are supposed to be for you, and you don't see, hey, oh wait, we just lost this areas. Let's do stuff to bring out the base more because we are more in that district. It's kind of looked at, no, how can we compromise more? Because now obviously the Republicans are going to vote, so let's try to get both of them to vote for us. I don't know.
It's mind-boggling. And AOC, so here she is again. She had said if she was a one-term Congress member, fine, so be it. She was going to go down swinging. She was going to go down fighting for her district, and I guess she forgot she said that, or she didn't mean it, or she got corrupted by power. I think a lot of it is being corrupted by power. I think, people forget also where they came from. They really, really, really do. I think it's easy to forget. A good friend of mine grew up very, not very poor, but grew up in a rough area of Salinas, California. I've told this story before. And he said, you don't want to think about it. I made it. I teach at Stanford now. I'm doing well. He says, I do think about it. I go back, but you don't want to think about it. It's not great. It's not great living in rough areas and where you hear gunshots at night and people are. Yeah, you don't want it. You don't want that. You don't want to think about it. I think
on a person-to-person level, I understand that mentality a little bit more. When you turn to an elected official, it's like, no, it's your job to actually represent those people. And that is your district. But I think it's more than just they forget about where they came from. I think it's also to a part of, it's hard to be the person at your job who's always pushing back against all the other coworkers who are doing something bad too. And I think a lot of it is, I'm going along to get along because I don't want to be the odd man out or the odd woman out. And the thing is that a lot of them need to realize, and I think you have people on the fringe right who have realized this, is that I'm not alone, because one, I can find my little group of people within Congress who can help me. And two, I have the public to be with me at the party. I don't need all the elites at the party either.
Again, 100%. This is why I love having Carlos on. He makes such good points, so astute. By the way, 240, I have no calls yet, but please join us, 240-363-7190. I know we've got a lot of folks listening, Carlos, or if they're not watching now, they will be. The numbers have really been going up. Also, don't forget, click subscribe, bottom right, white and blue, Halitics, bottom right corner of the screen. Real quick, Carlos, so I was like taught you everything I know or something, right? Something like that. But you struggle with OBS, right? Because we were talking about that. And a friend of mine who you may have seen, Vernon, do you remember Vernon was on a few weeks ago? So Vernon is trying to learn OBS. And I was going to say, well, try to give him some tips, but it took me years, by the way. This is a really hard program. I know you could do it. You're young and it's easier to learn languages when you're young, but computers can, but this is it's very complex. You see me working on it, right?
I've seen you do it.
There's
and
a lot of,
like, it's one of those like, okay, well, I'm gonna just pay no
I'll let
attention
Hal do that
behind the
one. Hal, I'm good. Hal, you can take it. But you should learn this because you're a media guy. You do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, no, this would be really cool. I love also.
I
I
know
like
you
how
could. You
set it
get,
up with the backgrounds, the lower thirds, all of it. I like it.
you have to. I mean, you can't do this if but a lot of the other folks, because I'm just like doing it in my basement with a t-shirt. Actually, I am wearing a t-shirt, but I'm not wearing like a sleeveless t-shirt, and so you can't see my underarm. But Carlos, like, because the joke about the Russian guys in the basement,
Oh yeah,
tweeting for Trump. That's why Hillary lost. That's the reason she lost, was because of
no other reason.
those guys in the basement. Are you doing much media? Because I know you had the Carlos Cast, right? Were you going to do the Carlos Cast? Is that right? Some sort of podcast?
Yeah, looking at doing that probably around like September. But it's funny, I was just on a podcast a few days ago with Derek Terry, and we were just talking about the Charles County legislative proposals that we had. It was it's actually a really good thing where members of the public actually go to the commissioners with their like own legislation that they want to see them put up, and people propose all different stuff. You can propose to change a street light to be purple if you want. Like it's just a whole host of things. So it's really cool. I think that's one good thing that we do to move out or to branch out to get community input.
Do you got like a website or a link you want to share? Anything we can do to help promote you a little bit right now?
Right now, no, nothing really at all now to promote. My normal sort of social media channels, if people want to use that. It's just at Carlos Childs MD on everything, actually.
Because I can always add stuff, but I know you've run for office in the past, and you actually do have an elected office, so very cool. But since you're not running now, we can't really anymore. Promote anything. Oh, you don't? You stepped down?
No. When I took my new job, I actually resigned from there too. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm a private citizen, ready for all the craziness that comes.
I'm sorry you resigned for the people in Prince George. Well, but I mean for the folks in Charles County. I almost forgot the name, Charles County. Right. Hey, did your mom or dad ever think of calling you Charles because you live in? No. Well, Carlos is Charles. Carlos is Spanish for Charles.
It is.
So they did.
I actually was born in D.C. and then we lived in Prince George's County for a while first, and then we moved to Charles County when I was in like third grade or something. So yeah, but no, just and actually going back to what you mentioned about Charles County, we have changed a lot. We changed from now we're majority Black. We are the wealthiest Black county in the country. We beat out Prince George's County. We have a lot of those.
It's much more affluent. Charles County is significantly more affluent than PG County, Prince George's.
And most of it is from the Waldorf area, which is where I live at. We're the fourth largest city in the entire state. It's around like 80. It's over 80,000 people. Honestly, the population of Waldorf is a little under half of the entire county.
It's a small county. I got to get out there. I'm going to come visit you at some point. Are you going into the office, or do you work mostly
virtually?
Okay.
Yeah, so definitely come down. It's some cool things. We just had a few events going on for my job. I'm putting on some events in July, so you definitely come down for that. No, it's really awesome. But the one thing that I'll say for Charles County that we're still working on is we have a very tale of two counties here, where you have the affluent people who may live in Waldorf, and then you have going over to like the Nanjemoy on the western part of the county. You have people who live without indoor plumbing. The floors are like, they have dirt floors as their floors, and things like that is getting taken from them by developers who are looking to go in there, push the house down, and then just build multi-million-dollar houses because it's right on the water too. It's right. I want to say that's the Mattawoman Creek or Chesapeake Bay area, right on the water. Wonderful property. A lot of the people who live there now have been living there since the Civil War, since like slavery time. So it's just been passed down generation to generation. The thing is, as it gets passed down, your name might not even be on the deed, but you live there. So now it's like getting some of these government program help they can't because, or they say they
can't
they
prove
say,
they can't prove their title.
in my mind is, look, if it was that big of a problem, you can figure out, the government can figure out a way to help people.
I haven't spent much time in Charles County, at least not in many, many years. I did used to bike down there, but that was back in the 90s. But I was in Calvert County not that long ago, which is due east, I believe, on the shore, the western shore of the Chesapeake Bay. And it's the same exact dynamic. Right on the water, you have these very nice homes. Some of them are $1 million homes. Others are high $100,000. But once you peel back just to maybe a half mile from the water, you see those shacks. You see people who are living really in almost pre-industrial condition, and it's terrible. It's just, we should not be allowed. It's just not what our society should be about. All right, we got just a few more minutes. I do want to try to get to Plan B real quick on AOC. So there she is. Republicans need to own this vote, which is kind of ironic since the Democrats are the ones who got it through. This I can't stand. This is what these Democrats do. This is what Jamie Raskin does all the time. You point out how bad there's a problem with the Democrats, and it's always the Republicans' fault that the Democrats did something. Somehow,
and vice versa. Yeah.
Is that what you want with your kids? Like when I tell that's what I get from them, right? I get from them is, why'd you leave your glass on the table? Why did you? Oh, Michael did that. Okay, well, whatever. But that's what I expect from maybe 8-year-olds.
Yeah.
Not
these aren't even grown adults. These are great grandparents who are saying at this point.
Well, AOC, yeah, but I mean she's a little younger, but she's a phony. I'm going to just say it that. She really grinds my gears. You know, different politicians grind different people's gears. She grinds my gears. I want to play this clip real. You know what? We don't have time. Let's move. Well, all right, we can go. We can always go a little late. Oh, but yeah, we can go a little. Hey, you got any? No, let's just. I don't want to. I don't want to do that. Let's just. I was going to ask you about some advice on the live stream, but we can talk about that off air. So here's our friend Alexandria. Let's play it.
Even President Trump
said, it's a little soft
during his administration that using the debt limit as a leverage point or a negotiating tool is absolutely ludicrous and unacceptable because the stakes are simply too high. For all this talk about negotiations, Republicans are not negotiating at all. They, in fact, Republican Matt Gaetz expressed in a party meeting today that this is, in fact, a hostage situation. And I want to be clear about what the Republican Party is taking hostage. It is not Democrats. It is the entire U.S. economy. And for them to have this situation and try to use an unprecedented move of taking the entire U.S. economy hostage in order to secure cuts to veterans' health care, to Medicare, Medicaid potentially, or just threaten all of those services in the event of a default is unprecedented. It is extreme, and it is not acceptable. I am very concerned that House Republicans and Republicans in general are not taking seriously the guidance from the Treasury and from other places. Are you really willing to risk the entire economy on a hunch that experts in this field might be somehow wrong? I think the stakes are far too high, and that the Republican Party is dramatically underestimating the chaos and the damage. We are talking about Social Security checks potentially being interrupted, Medicare payments potentially being interrupted, Head Start, and so on.
All right, so she can talk. I mean, there's no question. She can go for a long time, like all politicians. You know how much I can't stand that. Remember, I would always complain. We'd be on Zoom calls, and I'd be texting calls. Would she just shut up? Would you shut? Did they ever take a breath? I mean, I remember once we had one call. I remember I was texting this other guy furiously, like, "You got to shut up! You got to shut up!" And you know. So I can't stand that.
So you can ask questions,
right? You can't.
The longer I talk, the less questions you can ask me.
That's right. It's just so annoying the way. Oh, they're holding. Well, don't vote for it. Then rally your people against it. Don't support Hakeem Jeffries to be House Speaker, which you knew was going to lead directly. You had to know he was going to be there for Joe Biden, Joe Manchin, and not for the Progressive Caucus. But then now they can claim, oh, I don't know what they can claim. I got nothing here.
I mean, I know Ayanna Presley's put up an amendment to, I think, the debt relief package to make it so that it doesn't put a sunset on the student loan moratorium. I don't know. That probably didn't go through, just the kind of people we have in Congress. But the way I look at it is this is like saying someone's going to go rob a bank, but they don't have a weapon. It's just they're like hanging, but everyone at the bank's acting like it's a real gun. Like that's what's happening. For her to say this is like they're taking it as a hostage. There are no, like, we have hostages in the room, but there's nothing that they're using to threaten us with other than their just imagination. And somehow we're all playing into it as if it's real. It's really gaslighting. This is really a lot of gaslighting to Americans.
I mean, it's like the person saying, I've got a grenade, I'm going to blow myself up, right? I mean, they're putting themselves in as much risk. A hostage is when you're going to shoot people and then throw them into the street, one by one, or they're on a subway, like in the Taking Pelham 1, 2, 3, and every hour we're going to kill another hostage unless we get $1 million. But here, it's like they're holding that grenade against their own chest. They're actually blowing themselves up if they blow anyone up. And I think, and we showed some reports yesterday, Carlos, too, that it wouldn't even be so awful. It wouldn't even be the end of the world if we didn't pay, if we reached the debt ceiling.
So I'm not for us not lifting it or using the 14th Amendment. I think that the toll that just day-to-day people will feel, I feel like is way too much of a possibility to go that far. I think the problem is that there should just be 14th Amendment, mint the coin. That's it. Like there shouldn't even be a discussion on, well, what can we do? We already did it. This isn't even like an issue. And the fact that we waited till June 1st to start doing stuff.
Yeah. And then also let the Republicans challenge anything that Biden does, because then they'll look awful, and their people will be just livid. Their base. All right, so let's get to this quickly. Plan B. This is what we're going to talk about, and we've alluded to it a lot. We've addressed it. What do we do? We can't count on Democrats. We can count on Republicans to do the wrong thing. We can generally count on Democrats to do the same, no matter how they campaign. So I do buy this. I think, and I don't remember what website I got it from, but I think we do need to align people. And so often both parties are doing very effectively, as is the media, the opposite, prying us apart. It's a tough lift, Carlos. I don't know how, but I don't know another solution. And I also think we have to align. That alignment has to be in support of a third party, a different party, because I just don't believe the Democratic Party can be a vessel for meaningful change. It corrupts everything it touches.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is I think a third party to me looks like a long-term thing that I want to see the people who actually like want to do it actually start doing it. Like here in Maryland, that's not too viable just by the way voting is set up, and just presidentially by the way voting and the electoral college is set up, that's not a viable option. So I think that if people actually put in the work to get voting rights for third parties in every single state, and they go from like the local level up, I feel like then that's an option. Until then, I honestly think people need to invest more into local politics, where you can actually change a lot more. Like you have some of these like city council seats or county council seats, depending on where you live at, in what area, that could be decided by like 400 people. And you have some areas where people live in an area with 25,000 people, but only 400 people decide who wins. That's not that many people. That's not a whole lot of work. If anything, if it's not putting people up for the race, then it's pushing the people who are running to support certain initiatives, or to just know, hey, we will hold you accountable. And I think even people doing a simple thing as a petition to say, hey, we want X, but have at the bottom of the petition, if we don't get X, we will not vote for you again, then that shows to them, oh, wow, it's like 200 people who signed this and I only won by 400. I got to do it now.
Well, we've seen some success. I mean, in Prince George's County, they really did move the council hard to the left, and they've passed some good bills. The county executive doing what she can to stop that. I do think I agree that there have been some valuable reforms, but yeah, I just think nationwide, the party, you got a lot of young, new council members in Prince George's County, and they are still green, and they have not yet been, had the rough edges worn off them. So now they're doing some really good stuff. I just think it's, we can point to some successes, but long term, the trajectory I think has been awful. And
how do you think how would you say a third party could be built up though? Like, do you see it? How long do you think it would take to have third parties, just whether it's in Maryland, nationally, just be viable?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think it's really a tough one. I mean, I think we have to just unite people. I mean, I don't know how else. I think we do need that populist, interracial majority alignment of working people, and in support of, and I do think the Green Party meets the test in terms of the policies. My biggest comment about the Democrat Party is I think without it ultimately will become corrupted by money. It is corrupted by money. It's new people who may come in with good ideas and good intentions. And I put AOC in that camp. I put many of the squad members in that camp, but I think they're pretty quickly tainted. I think the only way that we can kind of keep the Democrat Party honest is if there's a challenge, a consistent challenge from the left that isn't ultimately beholden to the leadership. So, people like AOC and the like, and she's not my favorite again, but I think she probably has some pretty good instincts. But ultimately, she depends on Hakeem Jeffries now, and she is going to do. And as you said, I thought you made a great point. When you work with people, you want their approval. You want them to like you. You want them to look kindly on you. And for whatever reason, it wasn't enough for the squad to say, okay, well, if I have Ayanna Pressley and I have Rashida Tlaib and I have Ilhan Omar and I have some other progressives like Ramila Jayapal on my side, then that's enough for me. It wasn't. They wanted, Mama Bear Nancy to pat them, give them a big bear hug.
Yeah,
they wanted it, and
that's the hardest thing to figure out, how to move past that, because what do you do when the problem isn't ideological? It's just not enough movement or like activism, when it's legit just how you personally view things. I can't. Like, to a point, I don't know how to change someone's personal mindset if it's a certain way. If your mindset is, I don't want to fight back against this person because we're friends personally, I don't know what to do with that. I can't make you. So, but we're in a space politically that makes it hard to even remove people from office or vote them out just because of the way money works, the way a lot of people are disengaged because they don't see voting working. So less people are going to do it.
It's a horrible situation. It's a terrible conundrum. I mean, part of the reason I do this show, actually, and by the way, I know we're a little over, folks. I hope you'll stick with us. We'll keep going for a little longer because I love talking to Carlos, and I think we're getting to some important stuff. At least I hope we are. And if you want to join us, 240-363-7190. And don't forget, click that subscribe and tell all your friends. I really need more subscriptions. I want to get to 1,000. Apparently, if you're at 1,000, I can start monetizing it. So I'm far away from that goal, but it can happen very, very quickly. People
hit that notification button too, so you can find
out. Yeah, so you get all the notice. Yeah, but what's really touched me, Carlos, is just getting some emails from people like, oh, I watched your video yesterday, or I like this, or thank you for that. I'm like, wow, that does, you feel like you're making a difference, but
you are.
Not much of one, but you try. So yeah, like I said, you got to do the Carlos cast, right? So there's Halitics, there's the Carlos cast. So Maybe you can come up with a better name. I like that Carlos Cast, though. I think
I'll
that's good.
update you in September, around September. I should
All
have
right.
an update for you about it.
We'll do that. And so I don't know. It's really hard to change people's minds. It's really hard to get people to do something different than they've been doing. It's people often fear, and with reason. Hey, if I do something different, maybe it'll be better, but it might get even worse. And they're not always wrong about that. They're not always wrong. So how do you convince people? How do you persuade people? Is, that's what we're about. You try to have, I guess, some kind of credibility, and you try to build up your reputation so people view you as an honest broker. But
I think it's going
tough.
local. I think the more local you go, the easier it is to fight for stuff. And I think when you're reaching new people in politics, when you start them out nationally or federally, a lot of it is losses that activists take in that arena. But if you fight on like a school board or a city council or a county council or board of commissioners, as we have in Charles County, you can actually get some wins that every activist will tell you. Whenever they get that first win, then they're ready for the next fight. And then they bring in other people. So I think that's it, is honestly going out there and getting some kind of win, whether it's small or big.
All right, Carlos, that's going to be the last word, unless you got another last word you want to throw in there. But I think we're good. It's been a great hour plus. I thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Anytime you want to have me back, I will be glad to come back. This has been amazing.
All right, awesome. And that'll do it for me and for Carlos. I will be back tomorrow. Carlos will be back soon.